My name is Mombi Gashara. I'm from Kenya, Nairobi.
My name is Cameron Lichens, and I'm half Dutch, half American.
I'm Marianna. I am Brazilian.
I'm Hong Nguyen, and I'm from Vietnam.
I was looking for an adventure, honestly, both academically and socially.
I thought it looked really interesting because, like I said before, I wanted something different.
And I want to help the disadvantaged communities, and these are exact things that CARE aims for.
I hadn't seen a program similar to that, or anyone really trying to tailor education to different needs of children.
We really looked at the different teaching methods and, for example, how to keep students engaged, which is so important when you're talking about kids who have PTSD or who can't sit still in a classroom because they're so hypervigilant. We're gonna teach them jigsaw methods by having them actually do the jigsaw method, which is great.
So how the method works is you get a group of students, make it as diverse as possible, and then you have your content that you want to teach of the day, and then you split your content into the same number you have in each group, and hand out the pieces of information to each student, and then you split each group so that the students who have the same topic of different groups come together and they form an expert group, and then they go back to their jigsaw groups, which is the mixed group, and then they have to teach it to each other.
It really empowers the students as well, which is such a good aspect because especially in the Netherlands, we researched that the minorities actually have this feeling of oppression and invisibility within the education system, but also within society. So by giving them these tools to have a voice and make the narrative, it can translate into like a more inclusive society and more representative society in a way.
Some history topics that are very much involved, or very much involved with their own history, so where Dutch history and Surinamese history come together, but then the method with which they're taught compared to how other history topics are taught, there's definitely a difference in terms of the time spent, the effort put towards this topic, and that unfortunately had the result of making some of these students feel, well, even though they were born and raised in the Netherlands, well, they don't feel Dutch enough, or they don't fit in this classroom, even amongst their friends.
So our experiment is to decolonialize history programs in the Netherlands.
We interviewed mostly minority students, and all of them were feeling invisible and absent and excluded from the history curriculum. And we discovered that a lot of teachers are also aware of the problem and are willing to work on the problem, but they just didn't have the tool or the incentive.
I got to interview a classmate of mine at university, and she was sharing that her family comes from Lebanese and Algerian descent, and she was saying that it felt very awkward when Dutch students would look, every time they would talk about terrorism, everyone faced her. That's a very hostile environment. That's not something, a child should have that.
It was one of the reasons why we chose our topic as well, because we were discussing about how differently history was taught in all of our backgrounds, and we were talking about how it was tackled, how some places is resisted against, some places they're complacent with it, and how sucky it is that we have different narratives that if people didn't know better, it will be their entire worldview.
It's always a very awkward conversation to have. Talk about slave trade and all these things, just awful, but if you learn about it and you have these feelings, you're more likely not to do that in your real life, so yeah, we have to have these awkward conversations.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that white people don't want to learn about other histories or other perspectives. And when we were interviewing Dutch students, they were all like, yeah, we know that there is this history that's being airbrushed. And we want to know about that, but we don't know how to voice that, and we don't know how to get there, but we still want that. Which is really important, I think, and it shows that there is a flaw in the curriculum.
That's why we came up with this proposal, our experiment design, which does not target changing the system, so changing how you're gonna go to different high school levels, but rather once you're already in your classroom, the experience you get as a white Dutch student, as a Surinamese student, as a Vietnamese student, whatever your background, is enriched. Yeah, so it helped with misconception on both sides of the spectrum. Yeah, we really hope to get our proposal out to as many schools in the Netherlands as possible, because we aim, or yeah, one target of ours is really for teachers to be more aware of this as a problem. Not enough perspectives being included in classrooms. So we want the change to start with the teachers. We want teachers to want to spend more time on certain topics that they previously haven't. We want teachers to encourage their students to use as many sources of information as they can, controversial or not. So that, because if the teachers can do that, then by extension, the students get more exposed, more involved, and generally also better at cooperating with other people even once they complete their education.
I think my view of education was very basic. It was just like the classroom, the teacher, and the students, but it's so much bigger than that. Like, where does the curriculum come from? Who chooses it? You know, like, how is it taught? That's all like already pre-made decisions that you don't really have that much agency to change. So yeah, this program really did open my eyes, and this was like, I used this sort of as an experiment to see, do I really want to get into this? And in the more like changing in societal way rather than administrative. And it's a yes, like that was a little push that I needed to actually be very confident in that, so yeah.
And especially with this program, I felt if we don't implement the experiment, we failed. That's just a big fat flop. But that's not the case, because even if the experiment doesn't go well, I still gain so much knowledge about pedagogical methods, still gain so much about my own journey. And
it's definitely a rewarding experience. And if you get, if the program is able to reach Rotterdam South schools as initially planned, I think it would be an amazing experience to be able to implement your research right away and get in contact with the people that you're wanting to reach out to and help.
I really enjoyed the CARE program because it was so practical. I think with my study, I missed the practicality of implementing things or actually making a difference, and I get that. Eventually we'll get there with this degree, but with CARE, I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna see what I'm gonna use that knowledge and do something with it. So that was, yeah, I've really enjoyed that about CARE.